Hang on here. Okay. We are on chapter 13 in Joshua, verse 23. We did indeed cover a lot last week. It's talking about name places. Last week we talked about the destruction of the 31 kings that Yehoshua took down with Bnei Israel. And that's why we could fly. We talked about a lot of things. Right now we're in the middle of telling you the borders of Reuven and Gad and half tribe Menasha. It's a lot of name places. We do have to go through them just to be, as we would say in Hebrew, yotzei, to be exempted from reading. I don't want to skip anything. Some things are I'll just be flying through. If you have questions, then by all means bring them up. But for the most part, it's just name places. The reason we have to know this also is for halachic reasons. We have to know the real borders of Eretz Israel. Yeah. That's an important thing to understand from all these things that we're reading. Because when it comes to Maisa, the tithings that we take from our the grain tithings and the truma, it's all agricultural things I'm talking about. When it comes to that, we have to know where biblical Israel is. That's important, because let's say Israel would take over, for all of the people who are about to watch this are going to say, see, the Jews want to take over the world. Okay, but let's say Israel would have went into to Egypt and took it over in 67. They could have gone to Egypt. The historians said they could have made it all the way to Egypt, to Cairo. Sure. Let's say they would have. Fine. So now they're in Cairo, and it's Greater Israel. They annex it as Greater Israel. Well, with that greater part of it, Greater Israel, what we call now today Cairo, Egypt, if I was farming over there, would I have to give Meiser and tithes on that? The answer is no. It's not Israel. It's not biblical Israel. The only place I'm bound to give those grain, that grain tithe or anything like that, is Israel biblical definition. On the other hand, let's go the other way. In 48, when the United Nations split up Israel, and so they gave the Arabs one part, they gave the Jews some other not even contiguous part of land. Let's say the Jews were living in the other part where the Arabs were, which is really Israel, biblical Israel. They would be even though it's not Israel, they would be responsible for those problems of Orla, of Shemitah, of all those things that we have to deal with today. That, by the way, is interesting too, because today we have to deal with that. If you looked at the email, apparently there's some peppers coming out of Israel that's being sold in either Costco or Myers, wherever it is. I forget what the email said, and that we have to worry about the Shemitah year, and so on and so forth. We have to worry about all these things. We have to take proper tithes, and we have to know how to do that. So all these laws that for years were just on the books, but nobody knew it. Nobody was doing anything because we weren't in Israel. Israel wasn't exporting. Now we have to deal with. But really, that's why these borders become so important. So when I'm going through them, it would be worthwhile to look at an old map. It would be worthwhile. And I know ArtScroll gives you some idea of where you're going with that. But if you even get a biblical map and you would look at it, it would be interesting, again, and then put it, I don't know how you could do that. I forget what it's called, overlay. You overlay it onto a map today, and then you would see what we're really dealing with. And as far as where biblical Israel was versus where it is today, if it's a little more, a little less, and even when David took over lands, and as David took over lands, we had a lot of people that over the years would go past our borders. Again, the important thing to know is that just because we defeated the enemy doesn't make it biblical Israel for all of those purposes that I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. We're on 23. Vayehi gavul b'nei Reuven. So this was the border of b'nei Reuven. And Hayarden, gavul, the Jordan, It was the Jordan and its borders. Now they're on the other side of the Jordan. They are in on the east side of the Jordan. They're not in Israel. They're not in Greater Israel. This was the land that was given to them by Moses on condition that if they go as the front guard, you said the vanguard, that's the front guard? The vanguard into Israel and to defeat the enemies, and they do that, and so then they will get this land. Otherwise, they would only inherit in Greater Israel, or in Israel. So like I said, this is the border that Moshe is giving them, the Jordan and its borders, Nachala b'nei Reuven l'Shvatim. So this was the inheritance of the children of the children of Israel, of Reuven, to their families. Ha'arim v'chatzreihen, the cities, and their villages. Chatzreihen, chatzir, by the way, it means courtyard. So it's interesting that, I don't know how they're translating in that, but it's Chatzreihen, the Mitzvah Sion says, are cities that are unwalled, that stand around that are surrounded by the walled cities. In other words, they're outside the walled cities. The Chatzreihen are the outside, they're the suburbs, for lack of better terms. Okay. So, Vayiten Moshe the Mate Gad, and again it says in 24 that Moshe gave to the tribe of Gad, Livnei Gad Mishkotehem, to the children of Gad, to their families. Evayhi Lahem Hakavul, and this was their border. Yazir, that's the name place. V'chol Arei Gilad, and all the cities of the Gilad. V'chatzi Eretz Bnei Ammon, and half the land of Bnei Ammon. Ad Aroir, until Aroir, She'al Pnei Rabbah, which is that is before Rabbah. Now, interestingly enough, also when it says why does it have to say Vayitin Moshe Livnei Gad, and this whole thing? Why is it going to God? Because God was the first one, and actually the only one, to request this land. They were the ones that came to Moshe and said, Moshe, we have a lot of grain, we have a lot of flocks, and so it was their idea, in other words. They wanted to, so we would like to stay on this side, and yes, we'll go over and fight, not a problem, but this is what we would rather have. And then once Reuven saw that Moshe wasn't opposed to that, in concept anyway, so they also joined. When it came to Menasha, that was just a matter of, does anybody else want to be on the side of the Jordan? Yeah, and he could, as a person who's dividing land, he could give it to them. So he gives it to also Menasha. And the reason for that, by the way, is because there were two fighters, I forget the names offhand, but the two fighters in Menasha, who were the leaders, so they went and they just were they conquered the cities by themselves, it says. And they didn't even want the cities. It's just that Moshe said, okay, I'm going to give these places to you right now, not even on condition, because I know you're going to go across into Israel. But the other two, Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, so that they had to be tested. That's how the rabbis explain it. Why Menashe gets it right away, and God is mentioned by name here, and this whole system is going on. So here's the borders. From Cheshbon ad Ramat HaMitzpeh to Ramat Mitzpeh, Uvotnem, again, all name places. Mimachanayim, and from Machanayim ad Gevul Lidvir. Okay, and then 27, Uve'emek Beit Haram, and in the valley you have Beit Haram, Ubeit Nimra, Vesukot, Vesafon, Yeter Mamlachut. So the rest of the kingdom of Sichon Melech Heshbon, the rest of the kingdom of Sichon, the king of Heshbon, Hayarden Ugvul, Jordan and its border, I'd say Yam Kinneret, until the edge of the Kinneret Sea, Eva Yarden Mizracha, on the eastern side of the Jordan. Okay, so far so good, everybody? It's just a lot of name places. This is the inheritance of the children of God to their families. The cities, and again their villages or the outskirts, however you want to translate that. Also, an interesting note that they give is why does it say B'nai Gad, because, as compared to Mate Gad, but it's they want to argue, or they want to explain, not argue, but they're explaining that God. Why was God's name God? You have to get back to that. So God can either means troop, God could do to Yudenu, or it means luck, Mazal Tov, Mazal, either one. So it says this one. What's the other one also?
There's explanation he was born Mahol. He had God who was cut.
Right, but his mother Zilpah also was when she never had her menstrual cycle. In other words, when she was a young girl when she was married to Yaakov. Because what happened? Leah was having children, but she stopped having children, and she saw she stopped having children. So she said to Zilpah, her handmaiden, "Okay, you'll become married to my husband, and you will have children too, and I'll bring them up." That was the system that they had. So she was young, and they didn't think she'd have children so quick. And lo and behold, she had a child. It was a miraculous sort of thing. She had a child, and so that child was a surprise. That's one way of looking at it, a surprise. So what happens when it comes to Bnei Gad, and according to that, so the fact that the tribe of God, would come to Moshe and say, "We want this land instead of going into Eretz Israel," that's a surprise. It's a major shock to the system. So you're not called the tribe of God, rather the children. You're following the footsteps of your father. Same thing with luck. If it's the Mazal Tov, the Mazal part of that, they also had tremendous, because of their victories, and they were strong, so they also had the Mazal of their father, again, following the footsteps of the father. All this because he didn't say Mate Gad. The tribe of God, it says B'nai Gad. Since it said that, the rabbis want to know, why are you changing it? Why did the writer change it? It was to signal that. 29. Vayitein Moshe lechatzi shev Menasha. So now, and again, this is where it says Moshe gave to half the tribe of Menasha, vayi lechatzi, this land, and he gave it to them unconditionally. Vayi lechatzi mate b'nei Menashe l'mishkotam, and he gave to half the tribe of Menashe to their families. Vayi gevulam, and their borders were Machanaim called Bashan, from the Machanaim, all Bashan. Kol Mamachot Og Melech Bashan, all the kingdom of Og, the king of Bashan, V'chol Chavot Yair, and all the villages of Yair Asher Bashan, that was in Bashan, Shishim Ir, 60 cities. V'chatzi HaGilad, and half the Gilad, V'ashtarot Edrei, and Ashur and Edrei, Arei Mamachot Og HaBashan, the cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan, who to give it to? Livnei Machir ben Menashe, to the children of Machir ben the son of Menashe, the Chatzi b'nei Machir lemishkotam, to have the children of Machir according to their families. Ela she Nichal Moshe. By the way, Nichal would be the PL. Ela asher Nichal Moshe ba'aravot Moab. These are the tribes which Moshe caused to inherit the plains of Moab, from the other side of the Jordan, eastward facing Jericho. Okay.
Quick
So
question.
yeah.
In verse 31, I think it's 31.
Yep.
No, it's verse 30.
30.
Before the word og, there's a vertical line in the Hebrew text.
Yeah.
What does that signify?
It's called a Seek, I believe that's what the name is. If you notice under the Lamed in Mamlachut, you have a right angle. Yes? Under the Lamed, you have a right angle.
Oh, yes.
Before the
Okay.
Under
It's
in
upside down.
Mamlachut, in the word Mamlachut, you have a right angle. Yes?
Where?
Isn't under the
At the Lamed?
Lamed, under the Lamed.
You mean Mamlachot?
Mamlachut. Sorry, no, the right angle. It's the right angle.
I'm looking at the I don't see it.
There's
Under the
something-
Chaf.
Under the Chaf, there's a little. Like a
Oh, it's, in your book's under the Chaf?
Yeah.
Fine. Under the Chaf. Mine's under the Lamed. And then the next word also under the ayin, you have the same right angle.
Yes.
So it's telling you that you wouldn't read it Kol Mamlachot Og Melech Habashan. Rather, you read it Kol Mamlachut Og Biba Og Melech Habashan. You're splitting.
It's a pause. It's a pause.
It's a pause.
It's like a comma, like a pause.
No, it's just a pause. It's a pause because you'll be singing it. In other words, it would be. I have to think of how you would sing it in Haftorah trope, but there you go. There you go. See it? It's beautiful. That's exactly what it'd be. Okay, boom. Okay, so I'm splitting something up. So it's a bit of a pause, but you need that because the note is the right angle is the same note twice. So you have to know, does it run together? Is it all one phrase or not? So it's telling you it's a different phrase. That's why you have that line there.
Thank you.
You don't extend that note to both words. One note to both
Well,
words.
I know it would be. You would think Kol Malchut Og Melech Havasha and Kol Malchut Og Melech Havasha. You wouldn't stop it. So yeah, it's the same note. You would think it goes at the same time. And sometimes it can happen. You can have the same note. You can have three in a row. And you just say it.
When I learned at Trump a long time ago, what's that called? Munach? Is that Munach?
Yeah, Munach.
That in that case, when those two come together like that, it's actually the first one is sounded differently from the second one. They're not
Only
set.
again, there's
With the
rules.
line,
There's rules to all these things, but if there's a line there, certainly it's what they call the gourmet. That's what that's what Yair calls it, the gourmet.
Yeah.
So I don't know all the finer points of these things.
Yeah.
But if somebody who's really a bal dikduk, somebody who really knows grammar, and somebody who's bal nigun, someone who knows how to understand the trope, which is really part of the dikduk anyway, so then they'll know all the fine points of what they called.
We should consult Mr. Liker.
Yeah, no, that's true. He could tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know if he could tell you why,
Yeah.
but he could certainly tell you what's going on with the trope, and because he loves that. That's his.
Yeah.
That's what he studies. It's not what he does for a living, but that's what he studies. He's very good with that. He's actually the boy. He's the guy who teaches most of the bar mitzvah boys here. So does a beautiful job. Thank God. Okay, so that's what that thing is. Also, it says for 29. I'm reading the JPS. JPS? No, what's it called? Judaica Press. Okay. So it's he says JPS is yellow stuff. Okay, it's in 29. It says this was a half tribe of the children of Menasha. It says this entire clause seems superfluous. We do not find this expression used in reference to the inheritance of any of the tribe. It was written here to indicate that it was divinely predestined that the tribe of Menasha be split into two as a punishment for the progenitor Menasha who caused the tribes to rend their clothes when he overtook them and accused them of stealing Yosef's silver cup. Now, he was only following his father's order. So it's interesting that Yosef, by following his father's orders, and causing this causing them to rend their clothes because they thought they were in trouble already. So he's punished. By that, of course, his father is punished, namely Yosef. But it's interesting that their tribe is split up for that, and yet they're one of the fiercest fighters, and they're praised for that. So there's a lot going on here behind the scenes, as it were. And that's another thing that we, while you're flying through, you should keep in mind that's your storyline here at the same time. And we got to 23. Well, the Shevet HaLevi, and to Shevet Levi, to the tribe of Levi, Lo Natan Moshe Nachala. Moshe did not give an inheritance. Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Hu Nachlatam. Because Hashem, he doesn't say because, Hashem, the God of Israel, is their inheritance. Kashir Diber Lehem, like he spoke to them. So again, this is repeated, they explain, to emphasize that the part given to Reuven and God was an integral part of the land of Israel promised to Abraham, although it was east of the Jordan and was not a land flowing with milk and honey. Therefore, Levi was not given any part beyond the cities for dwelling therein. Should, however, any land be annexed to Eretz Israel beyond prescribed borders, the Levites are entitled to share. And again, they're the inheritance. Very nice. Another thing that is also very interesting is that, and this is pointed out by the Me'am Loes, he pulls a whole bunch of different things together, but I forget when he was around, but he brought an interesting point up too, that when it comes, which tribe is Moshe part of? Levi. When it comes on the east side of the Jordan, which is not a land flowing with milk and honey, as we just said, he could have caused his tribe to inherit. He could have said, okay, look, I'm around the rock, we're not in Israel, so while I'm giving away to Bnei Gad, Bnei Reuven, and half tribe of Menasha, why not give my family some land? Let them farm a little. Even if they have to work for the temple, they're only working 2 weeks a year. That's all they're doing. So for the rest of the time, okay, you're teaching Torah, and you're doing you're maybe adjudicating some cases, you're worrying about this cities of refuge, you have to get the jails going. Okay, fine. But all that, still, why not give them some land? And the answer was, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Hu Nachalatam. Because Hashem is their inheritance. They cannot be bound by land. So even though Moshe had the ability to give his family some land, he didn't want to take them away from their real purpose in life. In the time of Mashiach, on the other hand, when they won't be so necessary, the Me'am Loes says, because everybody will be aware of Hashem, and everybody's going to be at that level of learning, so then their job, as it were, they can retire now. Once they can retire, so they also can have a portion of the land. So it says in the biblical time, in the Messianic times, that they would also have their little part. Yeah.
I asked a detailed question on the Hebrew, actually, here.
Absolutely.
Translation. As he said to them, in the Hebrew it's Diber Lahem. In translation, he said to them. Diber is spoke.
Correct.
Right? Is there any significance here at all? It just caught my eye.
I think that they translated incorrectly.
Oh, no. Okay.
By the way, I did some more research. You asked a question last week. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you reminded me about this. You asked a question last week about vayavo, the word bo, and it's come. It really means come, and they translate as went. So, of course, the word went is really lech, go. Okay. So I saw the Malbim. The Malbim explains the difference between bo and lech. Okay, because in this week's parsha it says bo el paro, come to Paro, instead of lech el paro, and Hashem does say lech at times. So the difference would be if somebody is close, they use the word bo. If somebody's at a distance, they say lech. So when it comes to go to Pharaoh, for God, everybody's close. So he says, come to Pharaoh, because he's close. When he's commanding Moshe, as it were, to do a messenger type thing, like go to the water, that's what Pharaoh is, that's when he'll say, Lech al hamayma. So the Malbim felt your question and answered that way, to say that Bo is somebody who's close, and so that's fine. If I'm going, so it's close to me, I'm coming to you right now, as compared to go to him, and he's at a distance. So there you go. So you were correct to feel that there's something there. Again, when it comes to our scrolls translating, it could be, I'm not going to argue on what they're doing. It could be that they are, like I said last week, that they could just be going for the good English. Good, is that? I'm not sure if that was even a well-constructed statement, but it's you are right in the Hebrew that there certainly is a difference there.
Yeah, they miss all the subtleties. I don't want to get into that.
Well, no, it's true, and I think that's where the subtleties is what makes the storyline, though.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't get when they're translating. That's why I always say the only way to truly understand Torah is, or any of these texts, is to go back to the original and to say what's going on here. Why do you fail to say went, spoke, said? By the way, spoke and said is a difference, because spoken is I'm speaking to you. It's a much harsher language than I said to you. I said that to you. I'm very calm. I'm speaking to you. Do you hear a judge saying that all the time? I'm speaking, sir. Judge Judy, I'm speaking. But it doesn't say I'm saying. I'm speaking. It's a very forceful type of thing. So like I said, why our scroll does it? I don't know. You'd have to ask our scroll. But it's the wrong. I would say they're wrong. I would say they're wrong. And when Nelson Sherman hears this, and he listens to my tape, of course, he'll write me and say, Rabbi, no, you're wrong. Okay, fine. That's why we did it.
Go for the good English.
Sorry?
Our scrolls matter. Should we go for the good English?
There you go.
Yeah.
Could be. Like I said, I'm not sure why. It'll be interesting to ask their translators what they saw as to why they have to say said. Yes, said instead of
I
spoke.
think in our school's introduction to the English Sitter, they say as much there. They said that we want to be truthful to the Hebrew text, but we want you to understand it. They tell you every now and then they're going to change a word.
Okay.
You get the feeling here that Diber is much stronger than Amar.
It is.
It's like
It's
proclaim.
correct.
You're setting something for all
Spoke to
times.
them.
No, even in Hebrew, Rashi will always say, Diber is Lashon Kushi. It's a hard language as compared to Amar Lashon Nachat. It's an easy way of saying it. I'm saying, no, it's not a. You could also say, by the way, that's grammatical, because Amar is Kal, what we call Pa'al, the simple, as compared to Diber, which is PL, yes, which is the causative. So it's hard. So I heard one person explain that, and I said, that's a brilliant explanation. If you look at it like that, Rashi wasn't necessarily saying Diber is hard, that I'm speaking, but rather he's just giving a grammatical point. That is PL versus Pa'al. So it could be there too, but it wouldn't answer that question any better. What you're asking a strong question on our scroll. So maybe our scroll will get the message.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we're taking this Hebrew language course at the same time, because you notice subtle.
Right.
Right. You
Right.
would be getting these questions if we weren't.
Like the
taking
word
this
"to" is subtle, and there are many subtle.
Yeah. That's why I say that's why another reason I even decided to do this sort of a course, because you are learning the grammar, so it's much more fun than just running through it and reading it. Because everyone can read the English, so trust me on the translation. But it's much better when you see it and you say, you have a vowel conversive here. Why they translate it this way, that way?
Yeah.
Well, it makes it much more for you. For me, I see it. But for you, it makes it better because, like I said, you can see if they're translating right, And you get to see why you can't trust it, why you should not trust 100% the translation. You can use it. I'm not saying they're a bad translation, but you have to get that too.
They still insist at the beginning of a pasuk with the vav conversive. They still insist on using the and.
Right, and if they would have consulted me, I would have told them you're wrong. It's unnecessary. You're translating something that it should not be translated. But again, they have their leviim, so I'm sure somebody's looking into this and saying why they're doing that. Okay, Yud Dalet, chapter 14.
Where?
Chapter 14. We're flying. V'ela shenachlu b'nei Yisrael be'eretz Canaan.
Wait a minute, chapter 14?
Yes. We finished chapter 13.
Did I oh, I skipped back to that page. Yeah. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. V'ela, and these are asher nachlu b'nei Yisrael be'eretz Canaan. These are, and you have to include a word here. This is interesting. You have to include, well, I'm going to translate literally. You tell me what word's missing. These are that which the Bnei Israel inherited in Eretz Canaan. These are what? That's exactly what it says. Don't look at the English. The English tells you. The English shows it in. It is exactly saying this. Ve'ela, and these are Ashir Nachlu Bnei Israel Be'eretz Canaan, that Bnei Israel inherited in the land of Canaan. Asher Nichalu Otam Elazar HaKohen, that Elazar HaKohen veHoshua ben Nun and Yeshua ben Nun caused them to inherit Avirashi Avod Hamatot, and the heads of the tribe, the heads of the fathers of the tribes of Bnei Israel caused them to inherit. Well, what are these? Are these lands? Are these villages? Are these what are these? You understand the question? That's exactly what it says. It doesn't say these. It doesn't say what it is. It doesn't say these are the borders. And so Rashi said, Metzudas David says, "Ela Rochilimo Elo Ha'arim." These are the cities Ha'amorim B'Sofa Inyan that are said at the end of the matter. So what he's putting in is a word for you. He's saying it shouldn't just say Ve'ela, it should say Ve'ela Ha'arim. These are the cities that the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the tribes of Israel distribute for inheritance for them. Okay? So that's why now in the English, I'm sure they just say the cities.
No,
I would read it.
It says, and these are what?
They just change it literally. There you go.
They only mention cities in the footnote.
Okay, there you go.
No, I would read it all the way up to pasuk Hey, because it's all of explanation. I don't know I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's all an explanation. These are in this manner, and this because of this and because of this. They divided the arts. They divided land. The arts, and they divided land. I would read it all together.
Yeah, but that is.
Through, hey.
But when you're reading it, it doesn't read nicely. Right.
It's very grammatic because you can't have a relative clause without an antecedent. Just to speak grammatically, it has to modify something.
Right. Okay.
And so that refers to everything that went before.
That is going to come up actually. It's going to come up because they didn't receive anything yet. They only talked about before. We only talked about what the other tribes got from the other side of the Jordan.
These is whatever you're going to be talking about.
Right. So that's why Metzudas David. That's why everybody has to say. That's why the footnotes. I'm glad they changed it literally. I'm surprised. Okay, but it's that's why all the footnotes and everybody's quickly right to say whoa.
Oh, so in an older English translation text that wouldn't have these voluminous footnotes there, they would probably then say these are the cities.
If you go to JPS, Jewish Publication Society, take out one of their Bibles and see how they translate. They have no notes.
So they're going to have to,
unless they put something at the bottom, cities.
You have to know what the commentators are saying for it to make sense.
Right. And the point is, the reason they even say it is because there's something missing in the text. There's a word missing. You have to know what they're talking about. To go to say, I many times as a writer of articles, my wife is my editor in chief, and so everything has to go by her first. And when I first started out writing, she said, she would read the sentence. Well, what's this going on? I said, no, you have to read the article. She said, nobody's going to read the article past the thing that stops them. If they're saying, what's he talking about? They give it up. And so if that's the case, who's ever writing this, my wife wasn't the editor. She would have said, you can't do that. That's why the rabbis have to kick in. These are the cities.
Now, in the original Hebrew, there wouldn't be any of this chapter reference, or did that all come later?
You mean 14? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The way,
So-
this is, by the way, this is on this right now. This is in the middle of a chapter.
I was going to say that, just stylistically, when you change the direct object and the subject around, it makes it much more emphatic that you're starting a new idea.
Mm-hmm. Like I said,
This is instead of saying the children of Israel took these as an inheritance. These are the things which the children of Israel. When you switch that around, it means a new idea is coming.
Okay. So maybe that's why the
word order has a lot.
Right, so that may be why they made it chapter 14, but it's really not chapter 14. The JPS version, just for everybody's statement, and without any notes whatsoever, he says they say, I guess, and these are the allotments. They include a word too. You have to put a word in, or it doesn't make sense. And like I said, nobody's willing to read. I guess people do anything. But it's the assumption was for the writer that whatever, I don't know how to say that. The assumption is that we understand what he's talking about. And again, the commentaries say you can't make that assumption because people won't understand. So that's why they kick it right away. They're not willing to wait for verse 5, and because they knew that I couldn't cover it that fast anyway, so we're going to be stuck at this verse. Okay, we'll have to stop here.